All right, welcome to Live Coding Happy Hour for today, April 27th, 2018. I am joined with my co-hosts, Chuck Tomasi and Andrew Barnes. And welcome to the show, everybody. What we're going to do today, we're getting very, very close to knowledge. Andrew has taken the bullet and is, as he said, had a long, rough day. It's very close to knowledge, and he's going to be showing really complicated stuff. So, there you go. Somewhere in here, we didn't work the Gantt chart out right. But thank you for taking that bullet, Andrew. So what we're gonna do?
Happy to do it.
What we're gonna do? Well, I'll let you describe it when we get going. But first, let's get the longer introduction. Chuck, introduce yourself.
Hey, my name is Chuck Tomasi. I'm a senior TPMM at ServiceNow. Been here for about 8 years. Wait, what year is it now? Yeah, it's coming up on 8 in June, I believe. I was a customer for a couple of years before that, so that gives me about 10 years experience on the platform, and I have been loving it all the way, specializing in custom applications and integrations and the platform in general. That's where I live.
All right, and Andrew?
Hi, everybody. I'm Andrew Barnes. I am a service management architect at Novant Health, which is currently a client of ServiceNow's, and I lead a team of developers there. I have formerly been a partner as well as a client before that on the platform for just shy of 4 years now. Getting ready and excited to go to my 5th knowledge. So I'm really looking forward to that.
And I'm Dave Slusher. I'm developer advocate with ServiceNow, and I work at developer.servicenow.com. Chuck and I, and actually all three of us, have been kind of intimately involved in one end or another in getting ready for knowledge. We are both delighted and relieved to see it coming very, very soon.
And exhausted, yes.
And exhausted, yes.
All right, so let's go around the horn one more time. Chuck, what are you drinking?
I have a classic here. I've got the Cerveza Pacifico Clara.
Nice.
From my pool of Mexican beers.
I'm not going too far off that. So I've got a tequila barrel lime gosa that I'm particularly excited to try today because someone told me yesterday that it was awesome.
Oh, don't show that to my wife. She is all over sours and tequila, and that might be a dangerous combination.
All right, and I'm drinking, I think I've done this on this before, but I'm using the, I'm not going too far out of the comfort zone. Independence Harbor Amber Ale. You can get it at Aldi's. And I bought it on a whim, and that's what I had handy. So now, Andrew, go ahead and give us a little background on what you're going to be showing us this week.
All right. So I've got a little side project to make my life easier because, well, as a ServiceNow developer, we like to make our own lives easier as well as our, customers on the platform. And to that end, we've been managing. So I manage a team of developers. We have lots of update sets. Update sets everywhere. You've got update sets. They've got update sets. Update set palooza. And one thing that, so just briefly, what we're going to see today is part of the automation of managing those update sets. So I've built some tools to help us automate the creation and tracking of those update sets. And what we're going to do today is add a feature to that automation. And that feature is going to be around letting a developer know if the record that they're working on has a version that is not yet committed into production that's not for the story they're working on.
Okay.
Because the order of development's not necessarily the order of release.
Right.
All right. Okay. So go ahead. Actually, Andrew, if you'll go ahead and screen share.
I will do so.
Let's go into that. Getting into that mode. Boom. Beautiful. I see it up on the remote server. I'm going to turn my camera off.
Yep.
To reduce distraction here.
Thanks for that reminder. All right. So what I have open here on the left, and I'm going to maximize that for just a moment. So we're going to focus on it. I'm going to give a brief overview visually of what we're doing so that we can see how we're going to add to that functionality.
Okay.
So on a story, we have created this custom table for update set tracking. And what this custom table does is it will generate and track the status of update sets throughout my environment and make it easy for me when I'm in my story to go get to my current update set and to see the where things are. So this for today's purposes, Dev 13690 is our production instance, which is where we manage our stories. And if I would like to go do more work on this story, I will go say create a new update set tracker, and I can work on the name here. So update 2 is not the name I would use, but that's the name we're using right now. So that will go and create update 2 on my development instance, which all of these are personal developer instances right now that I've graciously borrowed from others for this demo today. And I can go use that link to go get to that update set and then set it as my current update set and start my work.
Okay. And so just so I'm clear, you initiate this from production.
Yes. So
Okay.
you initiate and track these things from production, because that's where we expose the visibility of the status of things, and the permanent records live in production, which is where we manage our stories and story update process.
Okay.
So I'm on my automatically created update set. I make it my current set, and then I start doing my development.
But you're in production.
This is my developer instance. So this is 46135, which is my developer instance.
Oh, okay.
This first tab is 13 blah blah blah.
Gotcha. So you created a record there, and it took an action, a remote action on 46135.
Absolutely.
Your development instance. Okay. Just getting things straight in my head.
Right. And these are configurable, so I can actually set that as a property on my production instance, which instances are my development, staging, and production instances.
Gotcha.
So I'm doing my work here. I complete my update set. So pretend like I just did some work. I completed it. And now I'm going to go to my test instance, which is on that other window. Maybe. Here we are. And this is my test staging, whatever you want to call it. It's my middle instance. Retrieve that. I'll make this large. So I've retrieved that completed update set, right? You see that here?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm going to go back to my production instance, and we'll be able to see that that's the case. So I have the latest instance I was in for that update set is my staging instance. It is in the previewed state, and here's the URL to get to it. So I could open this up.
So every time one of these subprods is acting on it, they're phoning home to production and saying, I have touched this, and here's what I've done. Okay.
That's absolutely the case. And so that I don't have to keep track of them, mentally, because I don't want to, because I have computers to store that information.
A system of record, as it were.
So if and when I commit this, so I'm going to commit it to my batching instance. That's the name I'll use from now on for the middle instance, is batching instance, and you'll see why in a second. So I've committed that. I'm going to flip back to my production instance and refresh this, and you'll see that it is now committed in that batching instance. And then we can go to that. We already have it open, though. In fact, let's just go to it, because this is how I would actually do it. I would go, oh yeah, see, that's committed. If I go, let's go to update, take a look at the local update for that. We should see part of the magic. and apparently it hates me, but that's okay. So part of the magic is if I had done this properly, I would also have batched this into a batch. Clearly I broke something in just a few minutes earlier because it was working earlier today. And so if you're not familiar with the update set batching, I'll just spend real quick and tell you what it is. It's the parent-child relationship for update sets, and it allows you to not have to merge update sets anymore, but instead use parent-child relationships to create batches so that you can back out individual updates and or whole branches of updates when you do your releases to production. So this also handles my batching for me. So
nice.
in the production, here we see this tracking table. It's going to keep track of which update set should be the top one. So that's what this field is for, this update parent. It says this one, it was my first one, and therefore that's the one that's my top one. And we can actually see why it failed now. It wasn't a code error. It's that it hasn't made it to that instance yet, and so therefore it can't link to it. Makes sense, though. I can't link to the parent if the parent's not actually there. And the next thing that we'll be able to see when we do this is I can now build releases from relating my stories into a release, and it will handle the creation of an update set for the release and place all of the stories, the top level story. So the top level story update set will get placed as a child of that release update set. And we can demo that really quickly by going to a release. Let's go to a release. And if I was in the correct view and I had stories, it would show me, but it doesn't have it. So I have a button on release that will go create an update set for every scope for that release, grab up all the stories that have already been batched and place them in that parent batch. And then they're ready to go. And it keeps track of all those things. And that's just how the thing is working right now. So now we're going to talk about adding features.
Actually, before you go further, how do you what manages that relationship that says these are the list of scopes that will roll into that release?
Good question. So on my story itself, where I have that relationship to the update set tracker, it contains the scopes that I'm in as well.
Okay.
So when I create one of these, I can choose which scope I'd like it to be. I default it to global, but I could just as easily choose a different scope, and it will create that in that scope for me.
Okay. So it's going to iterate through all your update set trackers and know that it needs one of these in each. Oh no, you're going to that's what you create. Okay. I think I've got this now.
You did actually say it, which is it will iterate. So basically what the release controller does is it grabs all the update set trackers for all of the update sets in that release.
Okay.
And grabs all of their scopes, and for every unique scope says, give me an update set that's a parent batch.
Gotcha.
And give me all of my children.
Okay.
And all of this was just the setup to show that now that I have this cool tracking thing, I can add features to it, which is what we're going to do today. We're going to add a feature to use the information that's contained in these to tell me that something isn't yet into production as a developer.
Okay.
And the other thing is
everyone lost yet.
No. I think we got it. But the other thing is, this is not theoretical, right? You use this in your process right now today, right? This is right, or is this yet to roll out to your developers?
So we have tested it out, but we're not using this live yet. So we are close to releasing it in our instance. But we have done extensive testing on this in our instances and are ready to set a date for deployment and start utilizing it.
And I'm going to ask a question as a proxy for everyone watching, which is, will this be made publicly available at some point? Or will this remain?
And the answer is yes.
Okay.
So I rewrote this and abstracted everything out and made it configurable. So
Nice.
So we've got so for example, we've got a properties page where you set which instances and the accounts to use to access them. So we've abstracted this as much as reasonable until someone else tries it and tells me that it's not abstracted enough.
Of course.
Well, the user number 2 is always the important one, right? And then you realize all the assumptions you made.
Is going to be very important.
Realize, oh wait, that I made an assumption that doesn't hold for anyone that's not me.
But what we are doing is all of the processes that it's doing is how we're operating right now, just manually.
Gotcha. Okay. Excellent.
So we are doing the batching this way. We're doing our release management this way. We're operating in this method. We just don't have a nice table to track it all for us.
Gotcha. Okay.
Awesome. So what we need to do is the key here that we're going to utilize is on these update sets. We have added, here's one. So on an update set, we've added a couple of fields. I don't think I'm quite wild about how they're set up at the moment, but that's sort of what I'm going to use you guys to help with the decisioning here, which is right now I'm setting latest instance and latest state, which correspond to that tracker that's in production. But I also don't think I care about this unless it's in production. Like, I think the only thing I really care about these is this in production or not yet?
So like whether it was previewed or not, or whether it's in progress is irrelevant. It's just pushed or finalized and pushed, or not finalized and not pushed.
Yeah. So I think I'm almost at a binary state for status, and that will allow me to only update it once it is pushed, and until it's not.
Yeah.
Because that's what I think I care about. I don't want to go to my update set in one of the subprod instances to see what the status of this particular update set is. I don't think that's my work method.
If that is the case, is that latest instance even matter?
Right. That's what I'm saying. I think
Okay.
I can reduce both of these fields down to a checkbox.
Okay. If you can,
and
you
just
should.
check to see whether or not the checkbox is checked or not. So that's what I'm going to go with right now. Is that that checkbox is all we need. So let's add a checkbox.
Okay. And we got a question from X Shadies saying, will this end up in a merge update set action? And this is the batch you're talking about before. Right?
So no, we are not utilizing merge update sets in our instances at all anymore. We are only doing batches. So all update sets are separate, and then they may or may not roll up into a batch. But pretty much
I don't have
they
my
all
notes,
roll
but
up into
didn't
a batch.
batching come out was it Jakarta or Kingston? It's a fairly recent thing.
It is either Jakarta or Istanbul, but I think it was Jakarta. So it is a relatively new feature, which is why I spent some time talking about it. Because it is relatively new and not everyone is exposed to it and or knows how awesome it is.
Yeah, I agree with you as well. It really sort of obsoletes the need to merge.
Right. And the reason that it's so great at removing that is because when you have a batch update set, which apparently I don't have any batch update sets, what you can do is back out individual updates and or a whole branch. So my stories are getting batched into one update set, and then all of my stories are getting batched into one release update set, and I could just go back out one of my stories, which is very powerful.
Yep.
As a lead developer with multiple development team, because you're very much likely to only have an issue with one thing and not 20 of them, and you don't need to back out all 20.
Mm-hmm.
But you only need to manage that one update set unless there's a problem. So it's incredibly useful, and we've been using it since January, at least on my team, and it's been great.
Not to throw a wet blanket on things, but how often do you actually do backouts? Isn't the normal procedure to put a patch on it and keep moving forward rather than roll back?
Well, that definitely was the preferred method when everything was merged into one, right?
Right.
So that was the mentality, and best practice was, we'll just go change what you need to change and re-promote that, versus backing out things, because you'd back out 19 things when you only needed to back out one.
Yeah, I get that.
And so I'm not sure that we've settled on, at least on my team, whether or not you should back out, because I used to never use that button at all, and now I'm considering using it occasionally. So it has changed.
But the key thing being, like, when you're pulling these in to production, you're not backing out per se, because it was never there, and that's what the keeping it separate and the batching is doing for you, right? You're selectively only pulling in the ones that you're bringing over. Is that a fair statement?
Well, no,
they're brought over as part of the batch.
You can still deploy a batch that has 20 sub batches in it, and you have a problem with one of them, and then you can back out just that.
I got you.
That sub batch.
I got you.
So back to creating our true false field. So in production, or we could probably come up with a better name, but is prod ? How about released? I think released is feeling good. So I'm going to add release. I'm going to hit save. All right. So now we have a new, and we're just going to leave these for now, even though I don't plan on using them at the moment. So now I've got a new checkbox called released that I can then set once this update set has been released into production. And I'll do that through the automation, and we might even get to that on the show today. But I think the first thing I want to do is start the actual check to see whether or not it's checked or not. Does that seem like a good place to start?
Sure.
Yep. All right. So in fact, we're even relatively close to where we want to be, right? We're on an update set, and so we probably need a business rule to check. Nope. We need to go one step down, actually. We need to go to the customer update table. So we need a business rule on the customer update table to see if the update set for this one has that checked. What do we need to do? Thinking through this. So what we need to do is check to see for the record we're on, are there other customer update XMLs? And if so, do they have no check box for their update set? I think that's right. So you guys think that was close to what we want to do?
I'll be honest, I'm not. I'm getting a little lost. So the the customer update is the parent and child. They are both customer update. Is that right?
So the customer update is the sys update XML records that go into the sys update set records.
So this is the actual update set, not your record that you're.
So
Correct.
every update set has got customer updates in it, and this is what we need to check. So if I go to this table, I'm going to copy that URL, paste it up there, and then remove my filter. So I just created a new entry by saving that business rule.
Okay.
And so what I want to do is have a business rule on this table that checks for that to see if there's another one of these.
In a different update set.
If there is, that it's in a different update set, and whether or not that update set has that checkbox checked or not.
Okay, I think I follow you.
And let's do that visually. So we'll do a list layout and grab. Oh, it looked like it was a reference, but it is. Good. So
yeah, better
update set.
I move things around between update sets all the time.
Released. Where's my field? There it is. So I'm adding it to the list view just so I can visually see what I'm checking for. So I'm checking the update sets released field, and I'm going to look to see if there's any that are false. So whenever I'm building these things, I like to go ahead and go to the list view, find the thing that I'm going to search against in the list view, and visually see what victory looks like and what failure looks like so that I know when I get there. So let's grab a different business rule that we're going to edit other than the one we're on, give it to different update sets so that we can watch to see the results. I like business rules. So let's do that. So we've got a business rule on incident. Lovely. And we should probably put that in update set. Look, it's in an update set, the laser update set. So let's get a new update set. Sorry for this. Let's grab those guys. And if you haven't done it, there's a share item for making these expand so you can actually read their text, which is pretty great, and gives you extra buttons for this thing to create new update sets. I think it's called UI 16 something or other. It's pretty awesome. All right, new update set, go. And let's make this our current set. Let's refresh this guy. And I'm going to make a new version of this in a different update set. New to check. And then we're going to go to our customer update set table and look for this record. Why did I do a new record? I just wanted to update the old one. That's all right. I'll make two. So we do have one version here, and what I was looking for is to put another version in a different update set.
Okay.
So let's do that. Different update set. Refresh this so it makes sure that I'm in the correct update set, because we like things to go in the correct update set. And we want to perform a change, and instead of 3, 2, 1, we'll do 3, 2, 1. So I'm going to get the sysid of this. I'm going to search for it here, and I should have 2 entries. Would everybody agree that should be reasonable?
Yes.
Yes.
No? How about we just take out the filter and see what's there?
I see duplicates in
because it has the I did the sys
_script.
ID instead of the sys_script_.
Oh, okay. But you could do ends with sys_id.
Yeah, I could have done ends with. Absolutely.
That way you don't need to find out what is the table and is there a duplicate.
So now we have 2 entries for the same business rule, and neither of them have been released into production. But if I release the newest one, this one here, to production, that will include the stuff from the other one. And that may or may not be a good thing. And this is what we're trying to notify the developer of, is that someone else has a version of this that you might deploy when you deploy this, and you may or may not want to. So go check.
Okay.
Wait a minute. If there are 2 different versions here, aren't you deploying 2 different versions to production? I mean, if I did the 1.2.3.1 first, it's not going to get the 3.2.1 value that came along later. They're 2 different records.
Absolutely. But if you think about it in the scripting sense, you absolutely could be pulling. So instead of, if I hadn't changed just the 3.2.1, but instead I had added a new field like short description,
right,
to 4.5.6.
Yeah.
So this, when I save this, I'll now have 3 versions of that if I put this in a new update set.
Right.
And I will have captured the 3.2.1 description. And I may still need it to be 1.2.3. And gosh, I need to not have numbers here so it's not confusing. So how about ABC? Okay. So when I try and modify short description to add ABC to it, I'm going to pick up this part, which is the 3.2.1. And that may not be ready for release yet.
Oh, so, I see. Okay. That's
it's a little easier to see when you're doing a script.
Yeah, no, I get it. You've got modifications over time, and the like you said, the order you're doing development isn't necessarily the order you should be doing release, and you need to flag people when it's not that order.
Right. So if I save this, we'll still only have 2 because we're in the same update set. And that's why I said it's key if I'm in a different update set that then I'll get a different entry.
Sure.
So here's the thing we want to do is we want to check this table when I add an entry for the same value for name as the one I put in to see if it has any friends where this is false.
Mm-hmm.
That's our goal. That's what we want to do in this business rule. Where I lost my business rule. I have too many windows already. Let's go to this instance and open up that business rule.
My brain is trying to think, since we're counting, if we could do this with glide aggregate, but it's because we're looking for a difference. I'm not coming up with anything immediate that doesn't get really convoluted.
I think we could do glide aggregate for it. So we're going to go to the customer updates business rule. And what we want to do here, and we're going to have to script this for sure, is we need to perform a search, and we'll get these right next to each other so it's easy. So we're going to perform a search on this table. So I'm going to copy the query. If you don't do this, you're wrong. Be declarative. So we'll start with glide record, and we might switch to glide aggregate, but we'll start with glide record just for funsies. So I'm going to paste in my query. I'm going to go get my table name.
Technically, you'd want to do an add encoded query, right?
You certainly can and should. but the system actually doesn't really care.
Yeah, I've noticed.
It will check to see if it is a proper add query, and if it fails that, it'll switch over to the add encoded query code on the back end.
You know what I discovered a year or so ago? I'm really surprised it took this long, and I don't know where I saw this. It might have been an out-of-box example. Was you can tell add encoded, or you can tell add query, like the condition builder, the pipe delimited variant of that. You can say short description, pipe, contains pipe. I went, what? How is that even a thing? It works. I haven't tested it lately, so don't quote me on that. But I found it very surprising that we have so many varieties of doing queries on this thing.
Yeah, they put a lot of effort into this part of the scripting here. So yes, you can absolutely and should use the proper one, because who knows what will change underneath, but it definitely works. Putting an encoded query with just add query, it works just fine. So we want name, and we want it to even equal. So let's just go ahead and build it here, and we're gonna and if you've ever worked with me in real life, you'll know I like to copy and paste everything, because, well, I can't do a typo if I do that. Come on. Ugh. Copy query, not URL. So we paste that in there, and now we need to abstract out this part, because, well, we don't actually want to search for this. So we're going to search for name is equal to, and we're going to say, and then we need to look on our record and see where that's coming from. But that's pretty straightforward because we're on the same table. So we're looking for current.name. Very tricksy. So we want to look for a name that is ours, and do we want to look for is not us? Or do we care?
I think you want to. You do care, I think, because you're looking for
everything else.
Everything does not. Yeah, I think you have to exclude.
Yeah, and sysid is not current.sysid. Or if you wanted to be really protective.
But what I was thinking of is if I get 1.
Yeah.
That I consider that not finding anything if I don't exclude myself. I could work at the logic from that way and say only if I get 2 or more do I care.
But aren't you going to have to do when in here are you going to check the flag? At some point you're going to have to take a hop.
Like right now.
Okay. But you don't want to hop.
We're going to check that right now.
But you don't want to do that hop for the current one, right?
I don't care. I could, but I just don't think I care.
Yeah, you don't care. So that would be a reason to exclude the current one, right? Because you're not going to dereference the current one.
So if I do this query and I get 1 result, that's the same thing as excluding myself and getting 0. So I could go either way on this, whether or not I exclude myself from the search.
I would say exclude yourself from the search. It's just, I like to make the database do as much filtering as possible rather than having my logic. Retrieve as few records as possible is always going to add better performance, even though it's +1 or -1 in this case. It's not going to be a huge difference, but it's just a good practice in my opinion.
So that means I want to exclude, and we'll use the filter builder here to say the sysid is not me. Run. So now we have checked to see if the update sets .release is false, and it's not me, and they're very much like me. So we can we'll redo the abstractions. So I add my quotes. All right. So we're going to redo our abstractions. So name becomes quote, quote, back, plus, plus, name, or current.name.
I would go with current.getValue name, but that's just me.
Sure. We can absolutely use getters and setters because they're great.
They save your butt more times than you can count.
So that's a good call out, Chuck. We should always use getters and setters. So we're going to get value, quote, name. So name is equal to our name. That part seems reasonable. Then we're going to say update set released is false. That part can stand alone. And then sysid is not equal to, and then we need to abstract again to get just our sysid, which is going to be current dot get value quotes sysid.
Or it could just be get unique value, right?
Sure.
I'll do that as well.
So that seems like a query that is close to something that might be useful. Is name is the same as my name. Release is false, and sysid is not my sysid. Go perform the query. And if you get anything, then we're going to want to do something. And what do we want to do here? So I think what we want to do here is tell the user, right?
Mm-hmm.
You want some kind of message.
So we want to, which kind of message do you think will be the most useful message? I'm thinking an add info message might be handy.
I don't know. If it's a potential conflict, I'd throw an error. I'd do an error message.
All right, let's throw an error.
It's up to you. How severe is this?
Well, the thing is you have to make a decision.
Okay.
Is this serious or not? Because sometimes it's not, and sometimes it is.
So this is more of a tap on the shoulder. Hey, you might want to go look at this.
Yeah, you might want to go look at it. The other thing that we might do is when we're building the release, do the same sort of check. So this is for the developer when they save it, but we also might want to check later. But that's a different future problem.
Yeah, I would say this feels like an info to me, but
okay, go with info then. It's not a showstopper. Something didn't break and die.
It's not a showstopper. We'll get it up there first, and then we'll decide if we want to change the color. You might have a potential conflict. Go check.
Now, if you watched yesterday's Tech Now session, you'll note that you could have done a gs.get message in there to future-proof your script against languages. Internationalization later.
We love internationalization, and no, I didn't catch that. I've had a long week. But yes, you should absolutely, when using messages in the system, use the internationalizations. Even if you're just a US-based company, it's still really useful and flexible to store those messages over there versus directly in your script.
And anytime I start hard coding strings, my brain goes, this is going to bite me later.
Yes. But we're going to get it to render on the screen first, and then we'll make it better. All right. So let's see. We've got a message. We've got an if check. And I mean, that's pretty much what we wanted to do, right?
Okay.
That feels like all I really want to do is on insert or update. And then I really just need to do this check. So I don't know that I can condition this very well.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but when you save this, when you hit that update button, you're going to generate this right now, right? No. This is not the one that you created that for. You didn't already.
But it will run against this for sure.
I
right?
forgot that we're newly creating this thing, right? Or we didn't. This is not one of the ones that we set up with multiple versions.
Right.
That's the Okay. Yeah.
That's this guy.
So we are new to check. Right. Okay.
So over here, if we update this guy, we should get a notice now. So let's just refresh it just because it's a different stored one. So if short description changes, perform this action. And we're going to add something to this. Short description. Oh, well, that's a terrible idea. You don't want to change the short description and have a business rule checking to see on change of short description. That just seems like poor planning. So we'll just change the value here. So we're going to change this value to Chuck. And if we save this, we should get a message. No message. No.
No debug business rules.
So instead of debug business rules, I'm instead going to run the script debugger.
There you go.
So we are going to throw in
But that won't trigger there's no condition. You do have a condition on here on the when to run.
conditions.
There's no conditions. Okay, so
No
it should be running
conditions.
all the time. Then the
So it's
debugger
a
would make
before
more
rule.
sense. If you had a condition, the debugger may not help you, is what I was getting at.
That's very true. And that is one of the cases where that the debug business rules is very helpful because it'll show you when and if it failed the condition check and didn't even run your business rule. So we launched the debugger. Hey, I was just mentioning last week that we should pull open the debugger.
That's right. It's now on the Tech Now agenda.
And
someone in the chat room said, I could swear I heard a knock on the door sound like when he was sending himself an info message. It was like, how the heck did he accomplish that? I think my phone actually sent an alert because somebody charged something to Amazon at that moment. Just crazy timing.
I did not trigger. I
No
didn't
alerts.
trigger.
Stefan says, must have misunderstood this, but where's the update set collision?
So, Stefan, the collision, the potential collision, and if I remove this sysid not equal to, is that I'm looking to see if there is another update set or another customer update entry for the same record as I'm updating that is in an update set that has this field as false. So in the case here, we have two different entries for this same business rule, and both of them are false. So if I update either one of these, I should return that there is another one. And we did not trigger that. We didn't trigger that. So why didn't it get triggered? Why didn't my claw? Why didn't I hit this?
Let us find out.
Potentially, let's check the updated and see if it did not update. It's possible, I guess. No, you don't want to show me updated?
Scroll, horizontal scroll.
Oh, it is there. Sweet. And 16 minutes ago. That's our problem. We didn't trigger this record being updated.
Did it save? 46135. I'm just making sure we're on the same instance. 46135. Start description changes. Did you actually change anything? Because it looks like the condition is still the same.
I changed it to Chuck and then to...
That's not what it says right now, though.
To Dave.
Oh,
I changed it from Chuck to Dave. And I got a new version.
Yeah.
But it didn't push it to the...
Interesting.
That's interesting. This entry...
Let's go look at the payload. Open that record up.
Yeah, this didn't get updated. Why
Open the
not?
record up. Yeah. Let's go look at the payload.
Thank you, Kingston, for making me click extra.
You can complain all you want. I'm kind of digging it myself. I can stop accidentally opening records.
I am both happy and sad. Like I'm both things. So
it's different.
I don't know where the balance is landed, but I like that the performance is better, and I don't accidentally open them. But when I do want to open it, I want it to open quicker. So I'm not settled on that.
Condition table equals incident. Short description equals val changes EQ. Your condition is still the same. It's short description changes.
The conditions is the same, but what I changed was the setting it from Chuck to Dave. And where is that on here?
It's not Chuck or Dave. It's still at short description changes. The original one, 16 minutes.
That's the condition. I'm talking. So the thing.
You're talking about the set value fields. Okay. So right click on set value fields. What's the name of the field?
Template.
Terrible name. Okay. So search for template in there.
Yeah. See, template. Template is that's not what is even in there.
Right.
That's not what's in there.
You didn't pay your update set fees.
Yeah, apparently I didn't pay my fee to the mob because it didn't get saved. There. I'm confused as to why it didn't get saved here.
Let's go change something else.
Yeah, I mean we can go change the condition and see if it gets invoked.
Put in like a board action or something.
Yeah. Add message.
What happened?
I want to see this. Save.
Okay. We got a new version at the bottom, right?
Should be 4 versions. Yep, 4 versions.
Okay.
Happened right now.
Yep.
And this record over here didn't tell me that it updated.
Go back to the list. Hold on. Go back to the list.
Yeah, that version didn't update.
Go back to the list. And
created.
There's only 2. We were in the lasers update set, right?
I'm reasonably sure, but who knows? Update set lasers.
Okay. I'm just doing a little verification here and there.
23 minutes and 19 minutes. It's the last time these were updated. And even if we remove all this and scroll
Let's go
over,
disable that business rule we just created just to make sure it's
1
not.
minute ago. Did we get a completely different entry?
I think we did. Do a show matching on that.
The thing
I think we got a completely different entry.
We got a new.
You got a new
target
script. You got a new script in there, right? And you're.
Yes, it's a new
Why is this
sysid.
different? That doesn't seem.
That throws a monkey wrench in our logic.
You're updating WER, not were new to check, right?
We were comparing against the wrong ones because we have 2 of these business rules that are.
Oh, that's
similar.
Right. So it was
We're
working all
updating
the
this
time.
one.
That's the one that doesn't have a duplicate entry either. There's only 1.
Yeah, so we need to update the other version. So let's go do that. Good catch there, Dave. Thank you, sir. So let's go back to this one.
You're not the only one who gets caught by things like this.
And we're going to do this. So this is what we're looking for.
On some IoT code this morning. Where are my changes? Oh, I'm in the wrong directory.
And we are not going to get this wrong. We are going to edit this one. There's no getting this one wrong.
That's usually where I start favoriting things and put them on the sidebar if I use them that often.
So we are going to update the description to Chuck.
And we better get our business rule.
And we should hopefully get the debugger.
Drum roll. Grab your beer bottles.
No debugger. Well,
Debugger
that's
kicked
one
in.
problem. And I'm going to turn off the annotations.
Yep.
So I got a new version. Let's validate that we updated here, and I'm going to remove some of these fields so I don't have to scroll. Just now, so 25, which is, I can't see the time, but
That is correct.
That is correct.
That's the right time.
So why didn't we invoke our breakpoint?
So we fixed the data problem, but we still have the same problem, which is
Yeah,
that we
should be hitting
trigger.
this breakpoint, right?
Is the breakpoint still on?
The breakpoint is still on, and we will verify that by reloading this whole record, and then we'll reload the debugger and be
also
very, very sure.
Turn on. We don't have to worry about the condition. So
this guy is still here.
Yeah.
We have no condition. Insert update. I feel like this should definitely run. Now, is it possible that that's happening asynchronously?
Shouldn't be. You didn't make an async business rule, did you?
You're saying that the
No,
update.
I'm saying that
you're saying the update
to that is asynchronous. So that's not in my session, and therefore I can't use the debugger on it.
Shouldn't be. This is all pretty stock
It's
stuff
possible,
here.
though, right?
Remotely, I won't rule it out of the question how the back end stuff of update sets goes.
So let's go edit one of these directly. Well, will it let us? One.
Yeah, he will.
Yes. Okay. So if I, edit something like what's not important in this thing?
Edit created by or updated by, which is just a text field.
Let's go updates 3.
No clicking.
That's promising. Hey,
there we go.
So it wasn't in our session. Okay, that's going to make this a little more difficult to throw a message into my session if the update to the table isn't in my session. That makes this trickier. Because that means I'm going to need to do a query like on load or something silly. I don't really want to do that. But anyway, I'll release the debugger because that's why it's not throwing the message.
Yeah.
So it was probably doing its business.
Okay.
And it just doesn't throw the message because it's throwing a message into a session that's not mine.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what. We are now at the bottom of the hour. So why don't we pause here and regroup?
Okay.
So let's kind of figure out kind of like where you want to land, come in for a soft landing here for this session, and figure out where you want to go from here. So you kind of verified that there may be something happening under the hood that is not obvious, which is something's happening asynchronously that looks like it should be synchronous.
Right.
So that may be a little bit of a research task there to figure out what's happening that we don't quite understand how it's happening.
Right. And what do we want to do about that?
So let's think about this. Let's assume that hypothesis is correct, that it is that something's asynchronously like collating that into into that record. Does that prevent what you're trying to do?
It just makes it more difficult to throw a message directly into my session is what it does.
Does it?
So there's definitely other ways to do this. And in fact, there's a share item or two that do a similar sort of check to this, but only against update sets in your current instance.
Mm-hmm.
So they check to see, is there an open update set in your current instance that's not yours?
Mm-hmm.
And the way that those perform that I've seen, they have a business rule on each table so they have a business rule on the business rule table, the client script table, the etc. table that do that check, as opposed to a check on the customer update table.
So how would you, what's like your first strategy for working around that? You would have like an async business rule that would set a flag somewhere, or somehow you got to offload that information out of the flow, right?
So either I offload it out of the flow, or I load it when I load this record. So I do something like either, show a I could potentially. So one of the things I thought of, which I wasn't wild about, was I could just show it on the source update set and just like play around with the name of that.
Mm-hmm.
So that was one of my earlier thoughts, is I could just say, dev at the start of this thing.
So your objective was to show people in real time, you're working on a record that has updates in other update sets. You probably want to be aware of that.
Yes.
What if you took it from running in real time as you're working on that record to part of the process about releasing? So as you view, say, a laser update set, it says, warning, there are conflicts, here they are, and you spit them out at that point, because there's no changes going on. We don't have where LDA sync stuff is settled down.
Yeah, that's one of the potentials I said is possible for us to do, is do this at, either peer review time or release time, to say, hey, go perform this. And you just do it against all of the records at once. So when I go to, say, do my peer review for an update set, so I open it up and I'm peer reviewing this update set, and I can then just say, hey, go run a collision check for this update set, and it goes and checks all of these guys for the exact same thing we were just doing.
Mm-hmm. All right, I'm going to throw out a wacky idea that I don't know if it's feasible or not. Let's say you were doing something like, so you had an async business rule that sets something, let's say a flag or somewhere. And I'm not sure exactly what the tuple would, like what the key would be, but it's like your session and the sysid or the name of the thing you're working on and something like that. And then you had another different thing that was periodically checking for that, like every 30 seconds. So like a little service portal widget or something that you had in a different window, something like that. So you get not quite in line, but a near real time.
Oh, that's interesting. So like a sort of a feedback window that says, hey, you've opened a record that has a collision possible, and you need to pay attention.
Or, I don't know if you would do it on open, but maybe on, I don't know. I don't know exactly how it would work, but something like that. Like, what if you offloaded that to like a little widget you had running in the corner of your screen?
Well, and definitely something that's possible as opposed to a business rule is to do it on the button. So on the action, I could perform that inside the save action and return it because I would be inside of my session scope then. Right? So I can make it on save or update. I really don't like messing with those buttons, but I could potentially, do that check through those buttons as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Is on save or update, do the check right then through the UI action. Mm-hmm. And then it could throw its message into my session because, well, it's in my session.
The architectural trade-off you're making is kind of, at that point, it's pretty intrusive, right? It's not, you're not treading lightly on the dev system. You're no longer treading lightly. You're stomping all over it. You are way in the mix at that point. So I don't know. Okay. So why don't we stop right there with the philosophical question and put a pin in that, and then call it good for this week. So Stefan is really I don't know what we say, being dogmatic about whether or not this is update set collision. It seems exactly update set collision to me, but sorry, Stefan. I think it's not collision-y enough for him.
It's definitely the potential for collision. But what you don't get in the regular update set collision is when I'm deploying. So I've got update set A that I did in March, and I've got update set B that I did in April. And when I go to deploy update set B to production, it doesn't tell me that I'm potentially deploying A. What it will tell me is when I do go to deploy A, that B is newer than it. That's update set collision as you know it in the update set checker. And we're trying to avoid one of those ahead of time.
All right. And so this is really interesting stuff. What I really love about this is the tying everything so directly to the SDLC, right? One of the questions we had way early, I'm going to have to scroll back to find them, is you cannot use what you're doing unless you're using SDLC, right? It has to be there.
No, I abstracted it to go off of any task-based table.
Okay.
So the update set tracker can relate to any task-based table.
Okay. Interesting.
Because it's doing release and stories and Scrum tasks and something else. So I just allowed it to be any task-based table.
So if you wanted to, I guess it could be change request or something like that.
Yeah, it could be changes or incidents. It could be anything that you're going to relate to your update set.
Okay. Interesting. Cool. All right. Well, definitely this is one of those have to regroup a little bit and think about how you want to do it. But that is the job, right? That is how this works. And so I'm now really curious to find out what is not happening in band that I think is happening in band. So that's kind of the thing where we have to look a little bit at the implementation details of like what the system is actually doing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that was very interesting. It was pretty clear. It was out of band because if you did it directly, it was like, oh, okay, debug, no problem.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And it kind of makes sense. If you're moving through your development stuff pretty quickly, you don't want to sit around and wait for the back-end system to get done recording your changes. It would get tedious. So I can understand. It's kind of like SLAs. If it takes a while to calculate them, don't do it in the foreground. There was a point, I think it was 2011 or so, where we went from running SLAs via an after business rule to making them async. It's like, you know what? They may be 5 or 10 seconds behind the rest of the world, but they'll be right by the time you do a report. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And they have to do versioning and that customer update and maybe potentially some others. So there's at least two that are happening, and you don't want to wait for that.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, interesting stuff. I think this is super cool, Andrew. And definitely this is a thing that, when you get it in a position where it goes out to the world, would this eventually go to share? Would that be the mechanism or?
It's most likely going to go to a share, but it might go to the store. I'll be exploring that with one of the partners who I work with to see if they want to, take it over and deploy it as something to the store. But for sure, the first few people who get it are going to be friends and family so they can help work through the kinks.
We have volunteers in the chat already.
Yeah, all right. Well, thank you, gentlemen. Let's go around and get our beer ratings. So you were doing most of the talking and typing, so I don't know how much beer you get to drink, Andrew, but what's your rating?
I mean, I actually snuck into my second beer while I was here. So
Nice.
The Tequila Bear Lime Goza was actually really quite good. Man, it's a 4.25. It was
nice.
It made me very happy, and I snuck in this German sour beer, a few sips of that, and this one's a 3.75. It's pretty solid.
All right, Chuck, how about you?
The Cerveza Pacifico did very well, especially with a nice slice of lime in there. I feel like I'm on vacation. I'm in warm weather in Phoenix. So, if you can have liquid vacation, this is it. I just need a burrito to go with this thing.
And you didn't forget
I'm
the
done.
lime this time, huh?
No, I did not forget the lime. And I'll give it a 3.75.
Nice.
And I'm going 3.75 too. There's absolutely nothing wrong with this beer, but it's also not. It's solid. Nothing that would make you think anything other than it was an impulse buy at Aldi's. It's just fine.
It's just fine.
It's just
I
fine.
like it.
All right. Well, thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, everybody who for the chats and the questions and all of that. And I think we decided before the show there will be something next week. Probably a CreatorCon overview. So probably less technical because all three of us are heading to Vegas next weekend. So if you're going to Knowledge, make a point of meeting one or all of us because we're highly available. And if nothing else, stop us in the hall and say hi because we like
best place to find us will probably be in the developer hub somewhere.
That is definitely the place to find us. Hey, do you know if we have these again for this year?
I had heard no buttons from the community team, unfortunately.
No buttons.
No buttons this year. Nope.
That's so sad.
I know. I was really looking forward to it. About a month ago, I asked the community people, and I said, you need some ideas? Because they've been popping out of my head left and right. They said, unfortunately, no buttons.
I'm going to grab
year.
my buttons.
There's
you're
time
welcome.
for
When it gets back on, you're welcome to bring your old buttons back.
Well, if you've never been to the SN Dev Slack channel, which we're all members of, you can get SN Dev's buttons. So we have 3 buttons that I'll be handing out at the conference for the SN Devs, and this one right here is the champion one, which means you have helped a bunch of people in our Slack channel.
You have to send me the graphics of those because I have now an LCD round button that I'm just going to keep swapping faces on.
Oh, nice. I will send that to you, sir. Thanks, everybody.
All right. There is time for Amazon Prime a button maker, but I don't think I have the energy or the inclination to do that. So, all right. All right. Thanks, everybody. We will see you again next week. And then for those of you going, we will see you at Knowledge. And then after that, we will get back to our regular lives as the event horizon of every year passes. So thank you for participating.
Have a good weekend, everyone.
All right.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.